Hello everyone. Today I welcome you all to chapter 9, that is Intelligence and Language, as an under the course of Basics to Psychology. I hope you'll enjoy it. Now the characteristics that is most defining of human beings as a species is that our large cerebral cortex makes us very smart. So, in this chapter, we will consider how psychologists conceptualize and measure human intelligence. What is human intelligence? It is the ability to think, to learn from experience, to solve problems, and to adapt to new situations. We'll consider whether intelligence involves a single ability or many different abilities, how we measure intelligence, what intelligence predicts, and how cultures and societies think about it. We'll also consider intelligence in terms of nature versus nurture and in terms of similarities versus differences among people. Intelligence is important because it has an impact on many human behaviors. Intelligence is more strongly related than any other individual difference variable to successful education, occupational, economic, and social outcomes. Scores or intelligence tests predict academic and military performance as well as success in wide variety of jobs. Intelligence is also negatively correlated with criminal behaviors. The average intelligence quotient (IQ) of delinquent adolescents is about 7 points lower than that of the other adolescents, and positively correlated with health-related outcomes including longevity. At least some of this latter relationship may be due to the fact that people who are more intelligent are able to predict and avoid accidents and to understand and follow instructions from doctors or on drug labels. It is also found that among US presidents, the ability to effectively lead as well as predicted by ratings of the president's intelligence. The advantages of having a higher IQ increases as life settings become more complex. The correlation between IQ and job performance is higher in more mentally demanding occupations, such as physician or lawyer, than in less mentally demanding occupations like clerk or newspaper delivery person. Although some specific personality traits, talents, and physical abilities are important for success in some jobs, intelligence predicts performance across all types of jobs. Our vast intelligence also allows us to have language, a system of communication that uses symbols in a regular way to create meaning. Languages gives us the ability to communicate on our intelligence to others by talking, reading, and writing. As the psychologist Steven Pinker puts in, the language is the jewel in the crown of cognition. Although other species have at least some ability to communicate, none of them have language. In the last section of this chapter, we will consider that the structure and development of language as well as its vital importance to human beings. Now, what is the defining and measuring of intelligence? Psychologists have long debated how to best conceptualize and measure intelligence. These questions include how many types of intelligence there are, the role of nature versus nurture in intelligence, how intelligence is represented in the brain, and the meaning of group differences in intelligence. Now, general G versus specific S intelligences. In the early 1900s, the French psychologist Alfred Binet, 1857 to 1914, and his colleagues Henry Simon, 1872 to 1961, began working in Paris to develop a measure that would differentiate students who were expected to be better learners from students who were expected to be slower learners. The goal was to help teachers better educate these two groups of students. Binet and Simon developed what most psychologists today regard as the first intelligence test, which consisted of a wide variety of questions that included the ability to name objects, define words, draw pictures, complete sentences, compare items, and construct sentences. Binet and Simon believed that the questions that their students, even though they were on the surface dissimilar, all assessed the basic abilities to understand, reason, and make judgments. And it turned out that the correlations among these different types of measures were in fact all positive. Students who got one item correct were more likely to also get another item correct, even though the questions themselves were very different. On the basis of these results, the psychologist Charles Spearman hypothesized that there must be a single underlying construct that all these items measure. He called the construct that the different abilities and skills measured on intelligence tests have in common the general intelligence factor. Virtually all psychologists now believe that there is generalized intelligence factor G that relates to abstract thinking and that includes the abilities to acquire knowledge, to reason abstractly, to adapt to novel situations, and to benefit from instruction or experience. People with higher general intelligence learn faster. Now, soon after Binet and Simon introduced their test, the American psychologist Lewis Terman, 1877 to 1956, developed an American version of Binet's test that became known as the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Test. The Stanford-Binet is a measure of general intelligence made up of a wide variety of tasks, including vocabulary, memory of pictures, naming of familiar objects, repeating sentences, and following commands. Now, although there is general agreement upon psychologists that G exists, there is also evidence for specific intelligence as a measure of specific skills in narrow domains. One empirical result in support of the idea of S comes from intelligence tests themselves. Although the different types of questions do correlate with each other, some items correlate more highly with each other than do other items. They form clusters or clumps of intelligence. One distinction is between fluid intelligence, which refers to the capacity to learn new ways of solving problems and performing activities, and crystallized intelligence, which refers to the accumulated knowledge of the world we have acquired throughout our lives. These intelligences must be different because crystallized intelligence increases with age. Older adults are as good or as better than young people in solving crossword puzzles, whereas fluid intelligence tends to decrease with age. Other researchers have proposed even more types of intelligences. Now, like L. Thurstone proposed that there were 7 clusters of primary mental abilities made of word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial ability, perceptual speed, numerical ability, inductive reasoning, and memory. But then dimensions tend to be at least somewhat correlated, showing again the importance of G. Now, the studies of creative people suggested at least 5 components that are likely to be important for creativity. One is expertise. Creative people have carefully studied and know a lot about the topic that they are working in. Creativity comes with a lot of hard work. Then is imaginative thinking. Creative people often view a problem in a visual way, allowing them to see it from a new and different point of view. Then comes risk taking. Creative people are willing to take on new but potentially risky approaches. Then is intrinsic interest. Creative people tend to work on projects because they love doing them, not because they are paid for them. In fact, research has found that people who are paid to be creative are often less creative than those who are not. Now, working in a creative environment. Creativity is in part a social phenomenon. Simonton found that most creative people were supported, aided, and challenged by other people working on similar projects. The last aspect of the triarchic model, practical intelligence, refers primarily to intelligence that cannot be gained from books or formal learning. Practical intelligence represents a type of street smarts or common sense that is learned from life experiences, although a number of tests have been devised to measure practical intelligence. Research has not found much evidence that practical intelligence is distinct from G or that is predictive of success at any particular tasks. Practical intelligence may include at least in part certain abilities that help people perform well at specific jobs, and these abilities may not always be highly correlated with general intelligence. On the other hand, these abilities or skills are very specific to particular occupations and thus do not seem to represent the broader idea of intelligence.